Hey everybody, it's Nolan from 4Player Network. There's a lot of great games in 2017, but these are my top 10. So I'm here with Nick and Chris to talk about my number 10 game.
Hell yes.
Number 10.
South Park and the Fractured Butthole.
Yes, there it is.
The Fractured Butthole.
So, Crispy and myself are huge South Park fans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I enjoyed the Stick of Truth. Crispy, did you play Stick of Truth?
I did.
Okay.
I finished
Good game.
it.
Good game.
That game is still sitting on my shelf. I'm
I
so
don't
sorry.
always do that.
The Fractured Butthole, completely different storyline, and I think they bridge the games very well, and that the beginning of this game is kind of the end of the Stick of Truth. You know, there's still the Stick of Truth stuff going on. It's like, oh, all of a sudden, like, for the first, few minutes of the game, you are playing as, wizards and,
It's
and
still that
warriors and stuff.
Sword and sorcery, yeah.
Exactly. And then things switch it up, Cartman, decides they're not playing that anymore, now we're doing superheroes.
His contrivance for changing the story from sword and sorcery to superheroes was
A cat.
particularly funny.
Well, yeah, and it was a cat was missing, and they needed to rescue the cat because there was a reward, and so now we're superheroes because we're
It's
gonna
very
save.
much how kids would.
No, and so that's one of the
justify
things
changing games.
that I think they captured a little better in this game than they did in the Stick of Truth was the fact that these are children playing a game. So quite often, even though they are using superpowers and doing crazy shit, they're flying up into the atmosphere, the human kite flies up in the atmosphere and uses the tri-beam of his kite to launch them like a beam down to hit the enemies, and then they're in the middle of the street and all of a sudden car, and they have to move out of the way, and a car drives by. He's like, "You damn kids!" So I think that honestly, this game is tough for me because I love all of the South Park elements of it. I love the characters. I love the storyline. But it has the same problem I think with the first game did in that the gameplay mechanics didn't hook me as much as I wanted them to. Yeah. And I think they tried to change almost everything from the first game. It's a complete overhaul. And it's better, but it's still not where I wanted it to be. They made some...
The changes to the combat system, particularly, with the positioning and stuff, I thought were interesting. Definitely made combat encounters much more engaging.
You were much more involved instead of being, turn-based side by side.
Yeah.
You had the meter of whose turn it is next. You could affect that. That's one of the things I actually liked about this game. The mechanics that if you were to use some certain ability on someone, it would move them down in the line of what order they're going in. You could freeze enemies. You had your whole they changed the farting ability in this game to it's more combat focused. So you can stop an enemy from making a move. You can rewind time. You can make a duplicate of yourself in combat. Some pretty cool stuff. But it didn't grab me as much. I did enjoy, like you were saying, the positioning, and I did enjoy the fact that you can actually become dual class and then towards the end of the game, tri-class. You can pull from all these different abilities, so you're no longer just a speedster or a blaster or a mentalist or something. You get these crazy abilities, and you can just mix and match and pick the ones you like the most.
It's like they're slowly layering South Park and eventually transitioning it to a traditional turn-based RPG.
A more mature RPG, if you will.
Yeah, a little. But I will say that even though those combat elements and stuff kind of brought me down a little bit, all of the South Park stuff that was in there, the whole fact that the whole game you were running around collecting Yowie of Tweak and Craig. Tweak and Craig.
The Tweak and Craig, yeah.
Those were great. The
and
story,
it was Tweak or Craig's dad.
Craig's dad wanted them.
it.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
What?
But the fact that the story beats were great, and it's just Timmy was a telepath, so every time he spoke, it was like very fluent, like
Yes.
in your mind. And then like Cartman, like it's kind of weird. Was this whole thing in Cartman's mind? I don't know, because he's like, hey, he just called us assholes. Like, get him. Like, it's just kind of stuff like that. That's the stuff I loved about this game and what kept it going for me. I don't know if they're gonna do another one, but I would probably play it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a pretty heavy bag.
Number 9 on my list is Gorgoa.
Oh, a game I know nothing about.
Hey, I played this game.
This is a game that I'd never heard of. I didn't know anything about. And one day I finished my cast, the game I was playing. I think it might have been Hellblade even, early. And someone was like, "Don't check out Gorgoa." And I was like, "Okay." Fucking loved it. This is a puzzle game that is, I don't want to say it's unlike any other puzzle game I played. I played puzzle games that have, kind of little nice little like hitches or little things they got going for them that make them fun to play. But this one just, I think the beauty of the game is what draws you in.
It is a very interesting thing to look at.
No, it is, and it's very simple. Like the whole time, Nick, I'll try and paint a picture for you.
Please do.
You're looking at 4 tiles, like photos, and the entire mechanic of the game revolves around zooming into pictures and zooming out of them to make those 4 puzzle pieces interact with each other in some way that changes how the character, there actually is a character in the game moving around, to change how he moves around in the world, to change how some photos, the crazy thing is some of them look like they have nothing to do with each other. But then as soon as you zoom in or out, all of a sudden they match up in a certain way, it changes things. The whole game you're in search of 5 orbs. 5? 1, 2, 3,
Yeah,
4.
it's
Yeah,
5.
5 orbs.
5 different colored orbs.
And that's all it is. It's a very
And they're
simple
like
concept.
what, hidden in the paintings, or
yeah,
Yes,
it
in a
has
way.
to do with like this dragon.
Yeah, this
that
mystical
you're
like
summoning.
dragon. It's weird. The actual story of the game's kind of weird.
It's very artsy.
It is very artsy. Every single aspect of this game is hand drawn or hand painted, I guess. The art is beautiful.
So good.
And I found myself when I started playing the game, I was like, this is kind of cool. Yeah, that's cool. But then the more I played it, and I started getting this, that was interesting. Like, I didn't see that. Like, as soon as things, and you'll get something in your mind. Like, there's an area where there's like train tracks and stuff, and like you'll start to be like, I know what I got to do. I know what I got to do, but how do I fucking do it? Like, there were so many times when I was like just getting not frustrated, like, but excited because I knew what I needed to do, and I'm like, that's interesting. There's got to be some way I can move these around or overlap them on top of each other to try and get this puzzle solved.
Yeah, this is not at all. I'm looking at it. I've just looked it up. This is not at all what I was picturing. It's
No.
cool
No,
looking.
it's a very. It is like looking at paintings.
Yeah.
and it's not a very long game. It's only like 2 hours.
Yeah, like
right?
2 hours.
But
Yeah.
one thing that really struck me about it was how different each of the areas are. Like how differently you have to think about the puzzles in different areas, to the point where like by the end of the game they're doing some really interesting things with like with scale and like size of
Dude, like
things
the-
by moving them next to each other.
So like the first, because it does, it's an example of something like The Witness, where it does a very good job of teaching you its mechanics as you go.
Progressively,
Like the game tells you nothing. There's no tutorial. There's no.
dialogue.
Is there even words?
No.
There's nothing.
They just start simplistic and they
Yeah.
make it more.
So it starts
gradually
very
more and more
simple,
complex.
like The Witness. It's very simple. Draw a line. This is very simple. Zoom into a photo.
Yeah.
Like it's very, but then towards the end of it, oh my god, it's getting so fucking complex where you're zooming in and out 3 times and shifting and moving and doing this and doing that and then and like different areas and different worlds and like snow and desert and all this, and it gets intense. And this is something that like Chris was saying, it's 2 hours.
Yeah.
I would recommend anyone play this game. It is a quick, you can do it in one setting and you will enjoy the whole
It's
fucking
definitely on
time.
my radar
And it's
now.
absolutely worth playing in a single consistent sitting.
Yeah. Highly recommended.
Awesome.
All right, Ed. So number 8 on my list is Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice.
I love this game.
Yeah, it was good. So it's one of those games where I heard about it on the podcast. Nick was telling me about it. He's like, "Oh, it's so good, it's so good," and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, sure." And the only reason I played it was because I was not enjoying a different game, and I was like, "Ah, let me try something different." I download Hellblade. Holy shit! Immediately, I'm hooked. I think one of the things that obviously, and it's probably the same for most other people, one of the things that really kind of solidified and got my attention and engrossed me into the game was the fact that they recorded the audio with the 2 microphones, creating that 3D audio effect, which was crazy. It really did sound like, someone was whispering in your ear while you were playing the game. And
And it had a nice surround sound effect too. Like
No, definitely.
You could hear like behind you and in front of you too. Like,
yeah, it
well done.
felt like people were actually moving around you, and I like the fact that when the voice would warn you if there's an enemy behind you, it actually sounded like they were almost even coming from behind you, like behind
Right,
you.
yeah.
And so you could quickly turn around, and I've never really, and I don't doubt that there's probably other games that have done something similar in the recent past, but not that I can remember. And that really kind of. They say, oh, play the game with headphones. Like, you definitely do. If you don't play this game with headphones, you're playing it wrong. But and I understand one of the points of that is to kind of engross you in the story of this woman who has this challenging, almost like a mental illness, on this journey to save a loved one, and you're almost in her mind, and so that's. It kind of from the very beginning of the game when she's rowing the boat and you hear the voices saying, oh, turn back, stop, don't go, and they're like warning and all that stuff, and it's kind of one of those things where I'm sure that's maybe an actual voice in her head, but that's almost like something I do on like a daily basis, not always, but when you have that little voice in the back of your head like, oh, don't do this is dumb, or what are you doing? But I like that it wasn't just like her voice, it was obviously I don't like the mental illness, other voices saying it, but yeah, really well done. And
that's one of the things that they said, like they wanted to make this game for people with mental illness, like give them a way to like kind of show that other people are like paying attention to their plight a little bit.
And you can see that from a lot of the extra content they put out with the game. But obviously combat in this game was a big part of it as well, and I really enjoyed it. I was kind of worried at first going in because I'd heard all that stuff about, if you die too many times, the game will be deleted. And I don't know if that's real or not. I still don't even know, and I don't care. I didn't die. I think I died once in the game. So I didn't have that much problem with it. But I did enjoy the combat. I thought it was... the way they teach you, almost like I liken it to The Witness. They teach you by simply just putting you in a situation that's a little easy and then slowly upping the difficulty. They don't really necessarily tell you, press this to do this. Now you can find it in the menu, but they don't tell you how to do the special ability, the mirror or whatever. And you just kind of figure it out on your own as you go. And
they said the voices say like focus.
You
focused before.
Yeah, that's it. The voices will remind you to do something. Right. But yeah, and I really enjoyed that about the game. I did enjoy the boss battles. I thought they were good. I thought they were challenging. And I think overall, it was a short experience. And more and more lately, I've been enjoying short experiences. Just like quick, concise. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Combat ramps up. Difficult final boss fight, and then the game ends, and you get a satisfying story. Some people, I'm sure, were satisfied with the ending. I was, maybe some, not others. But I think overall, it was it got to the point. It got in. It did what it did, and it got out, and it was a great experience. So let me tell you guys something about the number 7 game on my top 10 of 2017.
Hit me up.
You'll never see it coming.
No! You got me.
I love Persona 5. It's not. I don't know where it places in my list of Persona games. 3, 4, 5, the ones I've really delved into. But man, it's fucking good. It's one of those games where multiple times throughout this year, it came out early in the year, and I picked it up and put it down, and picked it up and put it down. It's one of those situations where every time I picked it back up, I'm like, why the fuck did I put this game down?
Yep.
It gets addictive. I'll just one more day of the story, but then you get into a day where it's like, now it's like a story day, so there's like not an hour, but there's a huge amount of story drop that goes on. And it's something we've talked about multiple times throughout this year, but just the aesthetics of this game, just the style, the fucking style this game has is beautiful.
Like even like you mentioned the other day, like even like up in the top left where it displays like the date on the calendar is like super stylized, but like everything is so consistent throughout. It's because everything is that same style. It just flows.
It's
well
very
together.
committed to its style.
Yeah. Not only in the overworld where you're, just a student in high school going throughout your day, but also when you get into those dungeons. I think the style flows well into them, and I think just the stylized way characters move throughout the world, how you kind of dash and dart between cover and stuff. just like the way the characters move. It's almost, I don't want to say cartoon-esque, but it's like a little not realistic.
Also, the transitions between like getting on the subway and like seeing all those like
the shadows of people.
Yeah, and those shadows carry over to when you're exploring like when you go to the mall, whatever. And there's like all these NPCs on screen. They're not all detailed NPCs.
Yeah,
they're like
they
little shadow versions of people walking around,
Yeah.
which strangely enough works really well.
Yeah, it does. There's just the silhouette of a person is enough to know that you don't need to have some detailed person that has like, oh, a missing button on their jacket. Like you don't necessarily need that in this game because that's not where your mind's going. That's not what you care about.
It helps you focus on what's important.
Yeah.
The characters, the main characters.
Exactly. One of the things I like about this game a lot is how the story is actually being told. You're not actually experiencing this real time. This is all a flashback.
Yeah.
Because the game almost like Tarantino-esque. You've been arrested, and a detective is asking you questions, and it's causing you to remember all of this, and that's really interesting. That's something different that Persona games haven't done before.
I completely forgot that was the whole framing.
Yeah. And so it's really interesting because this detective character is going on in the game when you're in the quote past, but just how the information is being doled out piece by piece as you meet a new character. Every time you create a new social link, it kind of jumps back to the present real quick.
The interrogation.
Yeah, in the interrogation, she's like, I can't believe you got someone that was inside the police station, and then you jump back, and it's like, oh, this is how you met that person.
Yeah.
And I really like that style of how it does that.
It also kind of permanently keeps you like on the hook. Like, you want to find out how you got to this point, which is exciting.
Combat is something I think the way they changed dungeons, how they changed how dungeons work in this game, how you have like, every game's kind of had like a deadline. It's every Persona, the Persona 3, 4, 5 at least, revolve around the date and time. Like you have a deadline. You have to get this done by this date.
Yes.
You can get it done earlier, but as long as you get it, but then you can fail if you don't get it. I don't know what happens. I never let those fail. I'm too scared to find out.
I'm too nervous to let that.
But just the fact that you have to get into their dungeon and steal the piece to change their heart.
Yeah.
And I think I do like how they changed up personas in this game. I like that you interact with them in combat, and it's the same style. They all have a weakness. But you can, and if you knock them down, instead of just doing in the past, it's always an all-out attack.
Yeah,
was your option. But now you have the option of, I want to try to persuade them to join my team, or maybe I just want to get an item or some money or something like that. Yeah. I like that whole concept. The stick up.
They can even the enemy, the personas can actually trigger that too. They can be like, I give up,
exactly,
and then you could say fuck you and go right back into battle and kill them.
Yeah, I like that. I like that little. It's a nice little change of pace for this game. Overall, I think everything about this game, the music, the art style, the character, story bits, it really got a hook into me, and I'm glad that I still haven't finished it.
It's a big game
because it's daunting, but it's a Persona game that I'm glad I picked up and I'm playing, and it's a part of my Persona history.
Yeah.
Number 6 on my list is Prey.
Oh, yeah.
This is not the sequel to the Prey series I wanted, but it's the sequel I got, and I'm glad I got it. I love this game. It's one of those things where I think the game changes as it goes. At first, it's very nerve-wracking.
Yes.
Because as soon as they introduce mimics, obviously everyone's freaking the fuck out. You don't know. You're scared to walk into a room.
Yeah, it's one of those games where your confidence progresses over the course of the game.
But then the farther you get new weapons, new abilities, and even if a mimic jumps at you, you can handle it.
And you start to pick up on like kind of not patterns, but like you can kind of you know what to realistically expect could be a mimic or what might not be a mimic and that kind of thing.
And so I love what this game does. Arcane Studios did a great job with Talos 1.
Yes.
I think that's one of the best things about this game is just the world itself. Exploring all of these different areas of the space station. They're drastically different from each other, not only in how you choose to interact with enemies, but the story of it. Reading the email logs and stuff like that from different people, and learning a little bit more. It might introduce a new area.
You get a good feel for like what the purpose of all these areas was for too. It feels like a very realistic.
It feels like a lived-in
space.
world.
Yeah.
It feels like it's practical. I mean, obviously a space station orbiting, whatever, that we're not there yet technologically, but I feel like they did a very good job of simulating what something like that might be like the Arboretum. You have all like the trees and stuff on the station, and you versus like the guts and like. Oh, we've talked about the guts on previous shows, but just the fact that is an entire section of the game that has no gravity.
Yeah.
And so every time you go in there, if you go in at like a different angle, you get like
really disoriented.
Yeah, you're like, wait, what the fuck? Where am I? What? And it's like you try to establish an up and a down, but that only helps to so much. Like,
yeah. Also, that's a really by the way, just side note, really great name for a place like the guts.
Yeah. I don't remember what it stands for.
I don't either, but it's cool.
Gravitational utility tunnel system or something like that.
Sounds right to me.
Yeah.
And I talked about it on our award show as one of the best gaming moments of this year. But just the first time you start exploring zero gravity in that game, the first time you kind of exit the Talos and you're floating around and you can see, your HUD gives you different areas in the game that you can go to. Oh, I've been there, and that's where my destination is. And you fly into like a blown out portion of the ship. And things are just kind of floating around, and like it's.
And you can look through windows and see parts of the ship you've been in. And
exactly.
You're like, oh,
it's surreal.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the kind of the choices, and so I didn't get too far into what was the ability called where you can use the alien abilities.
The Typhon
Typhon, the neuromods and stuff. Like I only went so far with those, mainly because I loved turrets.
Yeah,
and I started getting to the point where turrets would be like insufficient alien, like whatever when they looked at me.
I'm kind of getting a little shifty eyed.
Yeah, just that concept though of like if the more you use these neuromods, the more you're technically altering your own genetic makeup, and like suddenly all the things in the ship that are designed to do damage to like alien life forms start to
attack you.
You're an alien life form. That's so cool.
Yeah. And the story,
it goes places.
It took a back seat for me, honestly.
Yeah.
Mainly just because I loved exploring the world so much. Mm-hmm. I didn't really care about Morgan Yu. I guess
I started to get into like some of the backstory.
I guess
stuff.
later in the game it gets more interesting.
There are definitely some things in the story that I feel like are supposed to be bigger, more shocking reveals than they actually are.
It kind of, I don't want to say it falls flat,
only
but I mean
because they don't like. Yeah, I think there's some things that they could have done to make some of the more shocking moments in the late game real by actually like putting you there instead of just explaining it. I feel like a lot of some of the most interesting things that happen are just kind of like explained.
Yeah, they just you were told the story instead of experiencing it.
Right.
A lot of that's probably budgetary.
Oh no, definitely. This game was a massive to take on.
Yeah.
Just the grandiose nature of this. And so while I still want Prey 2, I still want that game.
Wait, you want the sequel to this, or
I want the game that was Prey 2 that we saw at E3 in 2010. Yes, I still want that game, but I will say that this Prey did a pretty good job of satisfying my urge.
It was a really good game.
All right, we are into the top 5 of 2017, and coming in at 5, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
Damn.
This is a game that I loved ever since I picked it up. For the first several hours, I was jamming, I was gelling, I was grooving, I was jiving, and then I got to the first dungeon, and I was like, it was okay. They'll get better, though. And they never did, in my opinion. And we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, that one of my favorite things about the Zelda series are the dungeons, and they were a huge letdown for me in this game. But everything else was so goddamn good.
This game is so short of just being like one of the best Zelda games ever made.
And I will say, honestly, one of the things that elevated this game to where it is on my list, to even a couple of weeks ago, it was teetering whether it was going to end up being on my list, was the DLC.
Yeah.
I think the DLC added so much to this game, and even one of the simplest things they added as part of the DLC was the hero's path, and I thought that was fantastic. I don't know, have you seen the hero's path,
don't.
Nick? So the hero's path, how the hero's path works is when you bring up your map, there's a little button, you press it, and it will literally show a little icon of Link as you run around the world. Everything you've done since the moment you started the game, every death you've had, everywhere you've been, it maps it out.
Every breath you take.
The craziest part about this, Nick, is it made me realize how much of this world I hadn't even seen yet. You could see huge chunks of land that I clearly had never even been to, because it shows you your entire path.
Does it go back to the beginning of the actual...
From the second you booted up the game.
Oh, in that particular play session?
No.
No.
Period.
The whole save file.
Everything.
Oh, my God.
Game.
Up to 200 hours.
Yeah, 200 hours. Something.
But anyway, I think that was a great element they added, and I guarantee you more games are going to start doing that now. You will see other games doing it. But that being said, I think the DLC added a lot because it added specifically the Champions Ballad, because you got to learn more about these champions, and I think it added a good mix of shrines and, like, I don't want to say puzzles, but I mean at least challenges to the world.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that blew our minds when this game first came out was the fact that you can climb anything.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. That's a game changer.
That was just an insane concept.
That didn't really, as far as I can tell, that doesn't fucking exist in any open world game that I can think of.
Yeah, no, it
really
doesn't. To my knowledge, at least. But just it gave me this drive to I need to collect these go to these shrines so I can collect these spirit orbs so I can get more stamina so I can climb higher things so I can do, and I think it really was a good reinforcement. Another thing that worried me about this game early on was the fact that it's not in Zelda they give you a sword and a shield and you use those until maybe eventually you get an upgrade, but in this, like, nothing's permanent.
Yeah.
Besides, eventually you get the Master Sword. But before that, nothing is permanent. Everything breaks. And that kind of scared me early on.
Yeah. No, it did.
But then I started to realize it's not as big of a deal. I mean, yeah, who cares if that Bokoblin club breaks? You'll find another weapon.
It also forces you to experiment a little bit.
No, that's a good point.
Break outside of your comfort zone, maybe?
Because all of the weapons do have different styles of attack. Swords work differently than axes, work differently than clubs. The fact that there's a boomerang in this game, the fact that it's not just a boomerang you throw and attack someone with, you have to fucking, like, catch it on the way back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they can just fly past you.
I love the way the boomerangs work.
The first time I threw it, then it came back, and I didn't catch it, and just went right past me. I was like, oh, that's how this is going to be.
Oh, my God. One of the coolest things is, like, taking the Lizal boomerang, the big bladed one, and just, like, throwing it through tall grass.
Oh, and it chops all the grass.
Oh, my God.
I think they just completely nailed the open world aspect of this game. How you interact with, finding the towers. And unlocking them, they raise out of the ground, and then you get to go to the top, and you get to...
and scaling those, too, is a challenge,
scaling the tower. The Sheikah Slate, just how that interacts with the world, that you can use it like a telescope, and you can see things, and you can mark things on your map. That puts a pillar of light so you know exactly where it is. Cooking. Not only just like cooking for health, but it adds the stamina, or it adds the
toughness, attack,
the special effects that you get from cooking those things, the status effects. Thank you. I really am upset that this game fell short in the dungeon area, because like you said, Nick, it would probably be the best.
It could have been one of the best games of all time if they had nailed the dungeons the way it had in almost every other Zelda game they've put out, which is kind of a bummer. But with that said, this game is and
it's just the fact that every Zelda game, you've had all of these tiny little things that you have to do. It's like, oh, you have to do this, and you have to do this. In Ocarina of Time, you're a child. You have to defeat these, go to these 3 dungeons to unlock this, so you can become an adult and get the master, blah, blah, blah. Where in this, when the game starts, it's just like, defeat Ganon.
You have one objective.
And
get there however you want.
You can go right away. I mean, granted, you'll probably die, but you can go and try and fight Ganon, like, right away.
And many people have done that
and
already.
I think that's like
you can go through the whole game without ever seeing or touching the Master Sword if that's something you wanted.
You can. And I think that just speaks to this game's what Nintendo did with this game.
I think it speaks volumes about the fact that Nintendo is actually finally listening to like what people want. Mm-hmm. People have been tired of the hand-holding for so long. This was like the polar opposite of what
you know what? Done. Honestly, in my opinion, what would have made this the perfect Zelda game, those dungeons that are reminiscent of the area you're in, so you had a fire one, grass, water, whatever, and then honestly, playing the game as Zelda.
What?
I think that would have made such a huge impact. Because the whole concept of this game was Link woke up from being the resurrection. So he has been asleep for 100 years. I think if instead of you being on a quest to defeat Ganon and save Zelda, kind of, if you had been the other way of Zelda on a quest to save Link.
She was a very capable version of Zelda,
and I think that she was so close. And
she could talk.
I think she was my favorite version of Zelda in the series.
But anyway, I digress. Zelda, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild is an amazing Zelda game.
That's so good,
and that's why it's my number 5.
So good.
All right, number 4 on my list is Nier Automata. Ed, you liked this game, didn't you?
I quite like this game.
Yeah. It was one of those games where I played the first one, never finished it, but everyone kept telling me, "Oh, this one's different. This one's weird. You got to beat it multiple times." And it was one of those things where I was like, I didn't really understand it, and I tried to not understand it. I tried to avoid as much spoilers as I could, and I'm very glad I did. I went into this game only knowing androids, robots, multiple endings. That's literally all I knew about this game. Were you the same, or did you know more?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I didn't really, other than what I heard on the podcast, and because I started this game way late. It was like in December when I started playing it.
Oh yeah, I started in like October or November too, very late in the year. But yeah, I think it's so. First of all, it was an open world platinum game, which is kind of rare. Most platinum games are fairly linear, and I heard multiple endings, and I didn't really know what that meant. I just knew. I thought. And when people described the game to me, I thought it was literally you played from point A to point B, and then the game, quote, ended. And then you played from point A to point B again, and then ended, but things were slightly different. But that's not really what happened, and I'm glad I didn't know that. And I don't want to get into too many spoilers, but I think the drive of this game was definitely the story and the characters that, the main characters of the game. 2B, Nines, and... A2 is a character you meet, and honestly, A2 was probably one of my favorite characters in this game, for various reasons. But yeah, so some of the things that, kind of just really drive this game home for me was the not knowing. So, and it's kind of one of those situations where it's one, the big man tells you what to do. These, I don't say they're like the military, but they kind of are. They've been assigned to do this mission. It's like, hey, go kill these robots. These robots are bad. And you're like, okay. But then you're killing these robots, and they're all like making suicide pacts with each other, and they're like, "Oh, my brother, don't kill him," and it's like, that's weird. Like, what the fuck is up with these robots? And they're just saying these weird things, and it's like, is this right? Is this bad? Like, what is going on?
You start out under the assumption that all robots are evil and you should kill them all, and then as you get through the game, it kind of changes your perspective on things.
But even early on, and I don't remember when the first time I encountered robots who didn't fight me was, but I remember
amusement park.
Yeah, okay, it was the amusement park. Yeah, so I walk into the amusement park and I just start fucking destroying them.
Yeah,
and then I'm like, these guys aren't fighting, and I realize that some of them are just dancing, and I'm like, that's kind of an asshole move to walk up to these robots at an amusement park dancing and just start slaughtering them, and I'm like, wait a second. And to speak of the amusement park, and that's something that comes up with a lot of people saying that's their favorite section of the game. And while the boss fight in that area I really was intrigued by, honestly for me, the forest and the castle that comes after that forest was my favorite part. And so I liked it because, you spend a lot of the game and, you're in a desert and you're in this dilapidated city, and then all of a sudden you're in the forest, and it's I don't want to say untouched, but it's, you have these old ruins, these obviously, this is 10,000 years after human society, but these castles and all these ruins go back 10,000 years before even that, maybe. It's very old stuff, and you see these robots and they're training or whatever, and then you get into the castle and all the robots, protect the king, and they're all it's like, wait, I'm invading this castle to kill these people because, and then they're so worried about their king, and then you find out about the king, and it's and I think the way they delve out the story, the way they slowly dole it out to you, the first playthrough you only learn so much, and then the second playthrough they start elaborating on that stuff you learned the first playthrough, and it's oh shit, some of the information's oh man,
especially once you get to that forest section in the second playthrough, shows you much more in depth, past story to that area.
And I fucking loved it. I loved learning about this world, learning the lore, the characters you meet, and we haven't talked about combat yet. I know not everyone was this combat definitely not the deepest combat at any game.
Yeah. For sure.
They do mix it up a little bit. Every weapon has a slightly different attack, and you have your chips, whatever, that change slightly. But I did enjoy it. I wasn't necessarily looking for deep combat. I thought what I was given was good. The second playthrough combat is almost, I don't want to say, so you have the hacking ability your second playthrough, and you kind of have to do that because the way the character fights is not like, you can't do it. You just can't. So I did enjoy the hacking. I wish it would have gotten a little deeper, just because it's almost the same the whole time.
It takes like a second or two too long to go into the hacking and come out.
Yeah,
like,
if it was a little bit quicker.
Breaks you out of the flow of the combat a little bit, in my opinion.
But yeah, overall, I only did playthroughs or endings A through E. Those are the only ones I saw, but those are the other ones that quote are necessary or whatever. But I did enjoy them. I did like learning about these characters and learning about this world, and I'm excited that they are doing a sequel to this game, or another Nier game at least. Ed, are you excited for it?
Yeah, I mean, I came from this game a little bit like not sure how I felt about it, kind of close to like how Crispy felt about it. And you'll hear me and him talk about it in my top 10. But overall, I liked the game. I played 70 hours of it. I enjoyed my experience through it. So
spoilers on your top 10 if yours comes out after mine.
Sure.
All right, Nier Automata, play it. It's great. Become as gods. My number 3 game of 2017 is Night in the Woods.
Oh.
Yeah.
I should play this.
You should, Nick.
You should.
This is
really
a game
good.
that when we first saw it at PAX South, I was like, that game's goofy. And the more I played it, the more I realized how fucking good the writing is in this game. And I mean, that's honestly
how real it is.
And that's honestly all it is. There are very few gameplay mechanics outside of the storytelling. There is a mini game you can play whenever you go to sleep at night, or right before you do. You can play a game on your computer, which is actually a game in its own.
Oh yeah, what was that game called?
I forget what it's called.
It's like Demon Tower.
Demon Tower, I think.
Yeah, Demon Tower.
Demon Tower.
Yeah.
Which is its own game, but the way these characters, and like you were saying, Nick, it is real. It feels realistic. It really does feel like there's this girl who's come home from college and doesn't really know what she's doing with her life, and she's hanging out with her friends that she used to, they used to be best friends, I guess, but they're starting to move apart a little bit.
It touches on like real life situations.
Yeah,
that affect lots of like everybody.
Yeah, like when you go off with your friends to do crime. Like
yeah,
of course.
Except for that part.
I love crime.
The way that Greg and Angus interact with each other and interact with May as well as B, it really does feel like these are real friends. And I don't want to say it feels like it's I never was in a situation where it was like, oh, I only get to hang out with one of my friends tonight. Usually we would all get together, but this game kind of forces you to choose who you're going to hang out with. And when you make that choice, you don't get to see what else happens that night.
So you're saying it has social implications?
It does.
Yeah.
But besides like her two friends, I actually do like the relationship between May and her father and her mother. And the weird thing about those interactions is they never happen together. You only ever talk to your father when you come home at nighttime. He's up watching TV. Sometimes you'll watch TV with him. And you only ever talk to your mother when you wake up in the morning and she's at the kitchen table. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I've ever seen them like talking together.
They're ever in the. There might be one scene where they're.
Yeah, I think like room. One maybe, not much.
But yeah, they're normally not.
And it's interesting to see how differently May reacts or communicates with her father and her mother. They definitely clearly have different relationships.
Yeah.
And I'm just fascinated with this game. We've talked about some of the things on the podcast before, but just some of the stories they tell, some of the adventures they go on, like stealing like robot, making like robot machine things, and like I said, going to do crimes or
hijacking the fountain.
Hijacking the fountain. There's one where
when you say crimes, we're talking like
crimes.
Crimes.
But like the kind of crimes
cool
like
crimes.
high school kids get into, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, they broke into like an abandoned grocery store.
It's abandoned.
Yeah, exactly.
Crimes. The food donkey.
The food donkey. Thank you. And then going to Donut Wolf, and there's a scene I think I actually was playing it when I was capturing footage for this, but it was, they first time they go, they get this like eternity sauce or something, which makes them all high. I don't know, they get high off of donuts. And the second time they go, they're like, none of that sauce. And May's, it's her character starting to change a bit, and she's kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And she goes to the bathroom and just decides to wreck the place. So she's like fucking just like rolling the paper towels all out and like shoving stuff in the sink and turning on the water and like all this stuff, like going crazy. And I think Greg comes in. He's like, what are you doing? Like, and it's just this real like kind of emotion.
But she's reacting to like her inner
she's acting out
struggles.
From this like really
this weird place
compounding like inner turmoil
exactly. And the weird thing is they're all like anthropomorphic animals the whole time,
and that is never at all part of the story.
They
don't even talk like the game was written for them to be animals.
No, they could be anything. They could have been like shoes and trash cans and hats,
like,
and it still would have been the same.
She's a cat, and I'm pretty sure isn't there like some kind of there's some kind of pets in the game, like there are pets that you see walking around the town.
Maybe
I think. They don't ever really like address it, but like, I don't know. That was one thing that always kind of fascinated me about this game, was the fact that there are these anthropomorphic animals that has no like
has no bearing on the story.
Why?
But that being said, the story is fantastic. And I recommend anyone pick it up just to have a nice relaxing game where you just kind of get to sit back and learn about this world and these characters. And
I think these are some of the best characterized characters in all of gaming in 2017.
Hands down.
They were so good.
My number 2 game of 2017 is Yakuza 0.
Oh shit.
This is a game that I don't even think was on my radar going into this year. Mm-hmm. I've always known of Yakuza games. I've always wanted to play them, but I've never done it.
That's where I still stand.
And you know what? I said, hey, a prequel to the series, great place to jump in. And I am so glad that I did. This game was a delight. I guess I didn't really know what to expect. I knew it was a brawler, which I guess didn't excite me. I don't
hear a lot of people. Like, we've had a lot of conversation about this game over the past few months, and I don't feel like we've had much discussion about the combat or the brawling.
I think that's because that's not the draw of the game.
It really isn't.
While I will say that the combat in this game is good, it is very varied. There are 2 characters that have completely different fighting styles, and each of them have 4 different styles you can do. Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of detail and effort and time put into the combat, and it is well done, but it's not why I play the game. And I ended up lowering the difficulty to easy just so I can get through combat faster, so I could get to the best parts of the game, which are the things we've talked about all year, those sub stories, even the plot of the game, the meeting up someone and going and doing karaoke is fun in this game. The music videos to the karaoke are great.
Breaking the law.
Yeah, great songs. So I have so much fun. I didn't think I would get as carried away as I would with the 2 kind of main sub things of the game, which are as Kiryu doing real estate and as Majima doing the cabaret club. And I guess I say that I didn't think I would, but those are the things that scratch that itch that I have. Mm-hmm. The fact that I'm buying up real estate to make more money so I can buy up more real estate, and it's that kind of hole, that circle you get into, and it's that loop is so addicting to me. And I just like fell into it, and I didn't stop until the game pretty much made me stop. It's like, oh, you can't buy anything else yet. And I was like, well, fine, fuck you, I'll do the story.
Which is good.
Yeah, no, and so that's something I didn't expect either. It was I knew that the sub stories were good, and they were great. The little one-offs of, a guy wants to propose to his girlfriend, so he makes her a crossword puzzle, but she's can't figure it out, so you gotta help her figure it out.
Oh my god, I did one last night with the human statue where he had to go like take a dump, but like he had people watching him, so you have to keep thinking of things to do to like lure people's attention away from him. But like the people watching him are all like, oh well, that was weird, but anyway, I want to watch the statue again. This statue's so good. Like nobody knows he's a statue, but they're like really into just like staring at this statue.
The one-off,
it's so stupid. I love it.
The sub stories are great, but I wasn't expecting the plot of the game to be as intriguing as it was. And it starts out, and I think that's one of the reasons is I had trouble understanding some things because the Yakuza as a series is new to me, and so it took me a while to learn the characters' names because they are Japanese names, so it took me a little while to actually start remembering who people are. But then as soon as that started learning them and started knowing them, and I think the game does a good pace, has good pacing jumping between Kiryu and Majima. It jumps back and forth between them.
Yeah.
And I do love that the game, every time you jump back to a character, it's like previously on Kiryu.
Oh, that's
It gives you a nice little recap of everything that was, because maybe you spent like 10 hours with Majima and you might have forgotten what Kiryu
I think
was
in
up
general,
to.
recaps in gaming is important.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like a 20, 30, 40 hour game where you're just like, I don't know.
What's up, Chris?
No, I was gonna say, like, I absolutely agree. The what jumping back and forth between those two characters does for the pacing of their story is beautiful.
It's great.
Because by the time you're like already kind of, all right, I've seen a lot of what's going on with Kiryu, the game's ready to throw you back to Majima, and you're like, oh, I forgot, this is so good.
Yeah. There are some story beats that surprised me with this game, the main story. Some of the revelations you find with some of the characters and how they eventually end up meeting, I guess, because Kiryu and Majima are in different cities, they're in different towns, they don't really interact with each other the entire game. But the way their individual stories end up interconnecting and intertwining, and the revelation between character stories, like Makoto is kind of the main stuff that's going on with Majima, and Tachibana, the real estate guy, is the stuff that's going on with Kiryu, but how those end up coming together, it's fucking
you're
great.
blowing my mind right
Dude,
now.
it is great.
Fuck you.
I
Wait, is Tachi...
Oh.
No, I'm not getting into spoilers.
Oh, God,
I'm not gonna
okay.
say
I'm
anything.
sorry.
All I will say is if you've never played a Yakuza game, I would recommend picking up Zero, playing through it.
Real quick, who do you like better, Kiryu or Majima?
I'm going to go with Majima.
I am too.
Yeah.
I think Majima's just a better character.
Yeah.
I like Kiryu, but Majima's like too fucking cool.
He's so
he actually
fucking-
has like a personality.
He's so
kinda,
fly. He's so awesome.
I don't even know what y'all
Kiryu's kind
talking
of
about,
just
but
like Kiryu's kind
He's
of
a
just like,
dumb, lovable oaf.
oh, Majima's fucking dope. He's got flair and pizzazz. And
Play Yakuza 0.
I will, Nolan.
it's so
I
good.
promise.
Alright guys, we are at my number 1 game of 2017, and if you've been listening to this list and you know anything about me, you obviously knew it was Hollow Knight. This is a game that I didn't even know about until right before its release, and that I am so ashamed of that, because I am a huge fan of Metroidvanias, and lately it seems like we've been seeing more and more of them. They come out, at least 10 every year, and I am always on the lookout for them. If there's a new Metroidvania, give it to me. I want to see if it's good. And this one is so different. From the moment you start this game, you are immediately drawn into the world. It's dark and quiet, and you don't really know what's going on. You encounter several enemies early on that are seem harmless, but they can do quite a bit of damage. You don't have any kind of map, so you kind of feel lost. And as the game progresses, you start to meet new characters in this world and learn a little more about it. The art style is just something that's fantastic to me. Every single area of this game is so unique. You always know where you are, be it the lush green path, or the elaborate City of Tears with the inhabitants, so high and mighty, or in the terrifying Deep Nest. So much time was put into the design of this world. The sound design is incredible. Hearing the footstep as the character as he walks around, projectiles launched at you and splattering on the wall. A boss, laughing at you, or the fact that just silence. There are times in this game where there is no audio, and it's eerie. I found myself enthralled with what this game had to offer. Combat is challenging. You die easily. You have to make the decision of, hey, I got this ability that's really cool. I can send a blast out at an enemy, or I can do this. But if I use that, I am sacrificing what essentially is my health reserve. It's that challenge. When do I do this? Do I just a little bit of health, or is the boss coming at me too quickly? Do I even have time to heal? Combat, even though it is challenging, I always felt it was fair. Every time I died, I kind of knew what I did wrong. That was silly, I didn't read that move correctly, and I was always able to justify why I died, and go back and kind of try it again. The little details in this game I think just add up so much, and they're very subtle, and people might not even notice them. You know, when you sit down at a bench after exploring a new area, you know, the character he'll draw out the map. You hear the sound of him like scribbling on the map, and even when you pull up the mini map, I guess the kind of not the actual map on the pause screen, but when you pull it up, the character still moves around the world, and you see him pull out a little map, and you can hear him walking around looking at it. You'll encounter bugs in the world that are just kind of going about their daily lives. Some of them aren't enemies. You know, you have that little miner who's just singing her song, or the shopkeepers who actually, you know, some of them won't talk to you if you have the charm attached that makes you smell. And charms and notches. That's such a unique thing to this game that I think they handle, like the way they do it. You know, you find you only can have so many charms on at a time, and you're always on a hunt for, I need another slot, I need another notch, so I can get one more charm. And you have to take those charms and really think about how you use them. In certain boss fights, it'd be silly to bring in this one because it just doesn't help, and it actually might hinder me. Do I want to really focus on healing in this boss fight, or should I spend most of my time dodging instead? And that's something I recommend to people, is really, if you're having trouble on a boss, like, sit down and be like, hey, you know what? Is there a different charm I could be using that might help me out in this scenario? And speaking of bosses, there are so many in this game. I think there's like 32 or something like that. And the crazy thing is Team Cherry, you know, this is a studio. This is their first like game. And it came out of nowhere, and they knocked it out of the park. But the fact is, there is so much of this game that you don't have to do. You know, there are so many optional sections and optional bosses and optional like story beats that it's almost worrying that people who might not even see some of the best content. I don't want to say the best content, but some of the, you know, that we talked about, the Mantis area. That's an optional area, but like, just that boss fight was intense, and seeing those, like, you know, the Mantis characters, how they fly around the world and how you interact, like, there's so much of this game that people might not see, and that it's sad to me because it's so well done. You know, this is one of those games that I've always been a Metroidvania fan. You know, Symphony of the Night, Super Metroid, those were, you know, always the classics. Obviously, that's where Metroidvania comes from, those games. And then, you know, people try to, you know, recreate them. They didn't always, you know, hit the ball out of the park, per se. But then Shadow Complex came up, and everyone was like, oh, Shadow Complex, what a great Metroidvania. I think, honestly, Hollow Knight is probably my favorite Metroidvania of all time. This is a game that every time I pick it up to play it, I just fall deeper in love with the game, and everything about it just speaks to me in all of the right ways. And that's why Hollow Knight is my favorite game of 2017. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. If you don't like Metroidvanias, you might not like this one, but definitely give it a try. It is just so good. Well, thanks for watching my video, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. There was a lot of games I didn't get to play this year, but 2017 is out and 2018 is in, and there are plenty of new games on the horizon.